10, 9, ignition sequence start. 6.
Hello, and welcome to Rocket Fuel, your daily update of everything that's happening in the Rocket Fuel community. My name is Wack. Today is September 28th, and we're going to get started here with an update about Holesky, because of course it was the regenesis today. The first thing was this update came out of Geth, saying that they had a new version that was suitable for Holesky, and then we started seeing block explorers, and there were some issues in the beginning, but then they quickly got fixed and everything was finalizing on time. I had Rocknet, who gave me a really nice summary of what happens. What happened, he said it took almost 90 minutes to get everything finalized, but then at Epoch 11 it looked good. There was Rocket Pool, Holesky Genesis validators were getting their proposals through, so it was all looking good on their side. So there were some reasons for non-finality for the first while, and that was things like certain teams were not ready and were not online on time. Other people had issues with low-powered devices, like if you were using Teku with 8 gig of RAM, that was causing issues. Lodestar needed a special flag to use more RAM, and some users had issues with the Web3 signer component, but not everyone. Rocket Pool community had good representation with 90% of our validators online and all going well, and just a few proposals were missed. And then there was more of an update saying that the Holesky homepage, basically what you can see on the screen right now, I think that's what it is. No, that's not actually it. That's the pk 910.de page. But anyway, on the Holesky webpage, there's details on how to add it for MetaMask. You can get testnet faucets, and then also some of the Rocket Pool community members have access to Holesky ETH if you need that. So Patches has some for Rocket Pool users. Also PK910 has some. Rocknet has some. And then the Chappella fork will happen on Holesky tomorrow at Epoch 256. And after people start migrating their validators to 0x01, they'll have more Holesky ETH available as well. So there'll be plenty of it to go around, and hopefully we won't need to resort to it being traded on the secondary market or anything like that. So if you have any question about Holesky, pop into the Holesky nerds thread, or just reach out to some of the people that I mentioned a minute ago. Okay, let's get to Rocket Pool stuff now. So here we have a discussion that took place overnight about governance processes that I think was really interesting. So a while ago we covered an update to the TreeGen process that was recommended by Noshua. The TreeGen process was going to rework the way rewards were given to people who were in the entry queue for rewards. Before, what had happened is you would not get any RPL rewards while you were in the entry queue, while the beacon chain queue was really long. And the community pretty much fairly unanimously, people who responded to that thread in the DAO forum said that that wasn't really fair. The people were going to bring their validators online, and they should start getting RPL rewards from the moment they join the queue instead of from the moment their validator comes online. So that was going to be rewards tree generation version 7. And it seemed like, everyone was kind of on board with that, and then things kind of went quiet. Anyway, I think what happened was Joe was pinged a few days ago, or maybe Joe brought it up a few days ago, and then, saying like that we could go ahead with it kind of thing. But then Joe mentioned it at the team's stand-up meeting, and he... sorry about that cough. He mentioned at the stand-up meeting, and he said that some of the team members were not comfortable with just making the change to the tree generation, and he said, I think they're done with ad hoc processes. They want to make a formal process for reward spec changes and put it up to a vote. And then Noshua and Joe kind of went back and forth a little bit. Noshua said, the post on the forum has been there for over a month. It's absolutely ridiculous that most of the team doesn't pay attention to governance for long stretches and then thinks they can stomp in and dictate how things work. That's not the word Noshua used. He said something else. And then Joe says, this one probably on me for not letting them know about it sooner. I'll take the L. And Noshua says, is it your job to keep up with the governance forum and brief the rest of the team? If not, it's not your fault. And Joe says, oh, definitely not. But this is one of those cases where I could have brought it up. And when you made the post and I just got sidetracked, I didn't forget about it. I just had to prioritize. And then he said, I've got to go to a meeting now. We'll be back later. But then Kane came in instead and kind of took over the conversation. And Kane said, I was aware of the forum post. I was surprised when Joe said it was being implemented and I hadn't seen a vote. Maybe there was more discussion on it in Discord, but I don't keep up with every conversation here. You called a poll in your post a sentiment poll. Is 40 voters on the sentiment poll enough to change how RPL tokens are divided? Is that what constitutes non-contention? There were a couple of comments, and then a month later Joe tells us he's implementing it again. There were probably more discussion in Discord, but I'm not across those, so it felt off to me that a change that affects RPL reward allocation like this falls outside the usual governance process, and that's why we brought it up, and Dave agreed. I think planning on replying to the thread with this concern after Joe brought it up, that was being implemented but hadn't done so yet. Joe's message probably didn't convey my concern at all that well, but there was no need to start attacking us for wanting to ensure that changes to the protocol were widely communicated to all affected parties and not just the 40 people who read the forum. So of course, I had to cover this on Rocket Fuel before, and I was one of the 40 people who voted, I think, in favor of that. But anyway, here Noshua replied by saying, dude, what governance process are you talking about? I would tell you to read this. And then there was a meta proposal for Watchtower and rewards tree generation process, but I already referenced that in the forum post. This is the governance process we've been using for rewards tree changes. From my point of view, we had established a process since November 2022, and from that process has been used for all previous reward tree specification changes. This is I made a post 47 days ago suggesting a spec change and referenced that exact process. Now all of a sudden the team says this process is void. Maybe we should have said that about 40 days ago. So here Kane and then Noshua had a long back and forth that I definitely think you should go and read, because it's really interesting about the way that Rocket Pool governance happens and where the PDAO fits in with the team and the different kind of things that people want to happen and the different processes for those happening. Please go and read this conversation. It'll take you maybe 10 or 15 minutes to read it all, but I think it's really valuable to kind of figure out what's going on and how there's these different tension points and bottleneck points and stuff, and blocks that people thought maybe they weren't there before, but it might be that they are. So I'm not going to cover it all because I'd spend the whole episode just reading this. But Long for Wisdom here as well came in and I kind of tried to sum up the discussion from GovAlpha. I'll be talking about those a little bit more next as well. But here, there's some really interesting discussion that I really think that you should go and read. But at the moment, we really need to figure out what the where we stand. So Long for Wisdom said, all right, here's my point of view. As a general point, DAOs need their process to be predictable in order to encourage people to interact with them. If processes do not proceed as expected, it's a huge disincentive to interact with them. No one likes bad surprises. It doesn't matter who's involved, why it's happening, or even if the expectation is valid, so long as there is a valid argument that the process is ambiguous. In this situation, the outcome that least damages the legitimacy of the DAO is following the precedent, as this is the least divergent from members' expectations. As much as the argument just because we did it wrong before doesn't mean we should do it wrong this time is valid, it also misses the point. If people are expecting something wrong, then take steps to modify the expectations by replacing it with the right process rather than subverting the expectations and disincentivizing them from interacting with the DAO. Like putting myself in Noshua's shoes, the devs defined a process to change a thing. I'm invested in this DAO, so I want to make an improvement to the thing. In order to do that, I'm going to follow the process the way it's been followed in the past. A month passes. What do you mean you're not going to do the thing? I followed your process. I had a sentiment post to make sure that it wasn't contentious. Fairly sure I'd be annoyed in those shoes as well. And then Long for Wisdom says, and just to clarify, I'm aware no one has out and out said that it won't happen, but because you're in a position of power as the core devs, unless you are very intentional about how you communicate, any objection to anything that you have power over is going to be read as a denial. And then Jasper says, I agree. Suddenly requiring a vote for version 7, requiring a vote is weird. Version 7 should go in the usual way, sans vote, and version 8 plus should go by vote if someone proposes an RPIP to establish a process. And then Valdov says, we explicitly made a process. The post-Noshua reference is from Joe. That doesn't go through the full vote process unless there's contention. We've taken things off the table due to contention before, and I don't think contention is a high bar. I think the process just lets us get out of our way for now. And then Valdo goes on to say, it's more than done in the past. If we have an explanatory post saying this is how we intend to do it, which we have followed, I'm fine with let's formalize and polish and tweak and vote on the process, but I'm less fine with let's void the process more than halfway through a use of it without some overwhelming reason. So this whole discussion is fascinating. If you are a governance nerd and really want information about how things are working with Rocket Pool and the DAO and the team and all the different points of interest and discussion there, but definitely go and give this a read. I think it's really important. So as we are talking about governance, there's this really interesting post here from Pros 11, and they're also with GovAlpha saying this is a forum poll exploring medium-term initiatives with GovAlpha. So it's a long post here, it's going to take about 10 minutes to read it all, but it's really worth you reading. So this was posted 17 days ago, but I missed it on the forum, and today it's kind of come back up because of these issues. But here Pros 11 says, as a GovAlpha pushes forward with various governance initiatives, we're keen to involve you in directing our efforts for the medium term. We've described some options below, and we would appreciate a moment of your time to vote. Poll below or comment. So here they've got a whole bunch of different things that they can kind of help Rocket Pool with. Number one is the RPIPS portal revamp. So objective is modify the RPIPS portal to better meet most common use cases in the community. Number two is snapshot vote templates. Standardize the language and format for snapshot votes for better comprehension and participation. Number three, redraft RPIP 4, community resolutions and voting. And then they say resolve the issues of ambiguity in RPIP 4 that are currently impacting Rocket Pool governance. Note this would be separate from the effective stake discussion and more focused on having an approachable RPIP for governance procedure. It says number four, updating RPIP types and statuses. Objective is to update the options of statuses and types to better suit Rocket Pool. Here we have number 5, propose Rocket Pool operational processes. So create a formal operational process structure for the Rocket Pool DAOs. Number 6 is governance participation recommendations. So it says create a set of recommendations aimed at increasing participation in the Rocket Pool governance. Number 7 is community participation recommendations. Create a set of recommendations aimed at increasing value-added participation in the Rocket Pool community. Number 8 here says decentralization of permissions. So decentralize permissions to reduce single points of failure and improve coverage. Number 9, facilitate strategic discussions. Hold bi-monthly calls or workshops to discuss progress towards Rocket Pool's strategic vision. So then they say, what are your thoughts on these initiatives? We're particularly interested in your views on which of these are most urgent and currently unaddressed. The results of the poll below will inform our course of action. To help us gauge community interest, please select all the initiatives listed above that you would like to see us tackle. And then there's each one of those proposals, and let's see what the results are so far. So 90% of people say they want governance participation recommendations. 81% of people say that they propose Rocket Pool operational process, snapshot templates, community participation recommendations, and so on. There's some feedback here from Dr. Doofus, from Waldorf, and then Pros replies. Long for Wisdom says, here's a bump. Let's get some clarity. And then Dondo has replied here as well with some suggestions. Noshua's chimed in, Long for Wisdom again, and others. So if you are all interested in how Rocket Pool governance works and how you want things to kind of come together and where you want to see improvements happening in this whole process, then definitely check out this thread because there's some really good information in there. And these Pros and Long for Wisdom have made a huge impact, positive impact in some of the governance discussions that have taken place. So I really think that it's worth giving them a shot to helping us make them even better. Okay, next we have the new Treasury report that was sent out by Vaka. He says, "Hello Rocket Pool. If you need an intro how the PDAO Treasury works, check this post." It says, in the next rewards period, the PDAO budget will increase from 22% to 23% of the inflation. This period saw the payment of 8,723 RPL and 5,169 RPL for the IMC and GMC respectively for the last two rewards periods. The PDAO Reserve Fund received 9,225 RPL this period. Our PDAO Reserve Fund balance is now at 61,665, 3,728 RPL of which will be sent to the IMC and GMC if we fix RPIP 10. So see the last post. You can keep up with the PDAO Treasury with the following spreadsheets, and there's links to those if you want to read them. So thank you, Vaka, for getting that information out. Okay, going back to the Rocket Pool Discord, here we had Jasper listening in on the Lido node operator community call, and they had some different things on their agenda, such as Ethereum Wave 5 onboarding and Ethereum reorg dashboard and statistical analysis, and then there's stuff with Nethermind and something else. So the reorg dashboard is really interesting because they shared this information about which staking services get reorged and which ones don't, and Lido themselves are saying that they get reorged 0.00149% of the time, and then with Rocket Pool they're saying that we get reorged 0.01% of the time. So they're kind of like saying it's a lot more than Lido than they get reorged, but I think that there's some okay, I guess first of all, what does reorg mean? That means that the blocks that get proposed, they kind of move around a little bit. I can't fully explain it like this. With proof of stake, it used to be a lot easier. Sorry, proof of work, it was a lot easier to understand. I don't fully understand the mechanism in proof of stake, so I really should go and learn about that. But I think what happened is there was some kind of discussion about it that happened, and here there was an update from Ken as well, saying that in case you covered it on Rocket Fuel for perspective, there have only been 2 Rocket Pool proposed blocks that were reorged in the last 2 months. So as you can see, it's something that doesn't happen very often at all. The reason why it was mentioned is because we have fewer validators compared to some other services, and I don't think it's anything that the node operator themselves can do to change it. However, I'm not sure. So if that's something that you're curious about, then definitely ask about it in trading of Ken or Jasper or others, and they'll be able to give you a much better idea of what's going on there. But I thought I'd just bring it to your all's attention because you might find it interesting. Okay, next we have this from Jasper here. He's talking about a Coindesk article where they talked about Ethereum staking and how it has a bright future. And there was one key line that Jasper here is sharing, saying over the past 6 months, centralized exchanges like Coinbase and Kraken staking are down 4% and 36% respectively, while Lido Finance and Rocket Pool are up 56% and 85%. So Rocket Pool has obviously been doing well these last 6 months and has grown faster than others. If you want to read this Coindesk article about this, the link is in the description below and you can see it on the screen right now. They just talk about a bunch of different regulatory issues that might be putting question marks next to ETH staking, and I guess Ethereum in general. But there's this line here, Ether has been flowing from regulated US companies to decentralized finance projects like Lido and Rocket Pool. So you can dig into that and see what Coindesk are saying about it if you are curious. Okay, next we have Joe here with an update saying today is a bittersweet day. So for those of you who know about Joe, when he came into the Rocket Pool community, he was not a developer, he was just a community member. And one of the things that Joe really took a passion for right away was getting Ethereum staking possible to happen on a Raspberry Pi device. So he worked with the Ethereum and ARM people, and ARM is the kind of chip that the Raspberry Pi uses instead of whatever it is, I'm forgetting, just a regular Intel chip or whatever. But the ARM chips are those low power devices, and Joe made it his mission to make sure that staking worked on the Raspberry Pi, and he had a whole collection of Raspberry Pis that he was doing all sorts of testing on, and that work that he was doing and getting the smart node stack working with Raspberry Pis was, I think, one of the things that helped him get the job with the team. But anyway, he says today is a bittersweet day in preparation for the Holesky testnet. I've retired my very last Raspberry Pi and I've replaced it with the Proteus. And of course, the Proteus is the device that Joe makes himself. And then here's this Raspberry Pi with the hard drive attached to it. He says, this is what I used when Ramirad first got me into Rocket Pool 1,000 years ago, and what I used to make the smart node work on ARM. It's been with me since literally the beginning of my tenure here, but it's time for it to retire. So that was a nice little update from Joe about his last ARM device that he was using. They've all been replaced with the Proteus now because it's just a much more powerful system, and it just is a lot more robust for what Joe needs it to do. Okay, next we have this other news outside of Rocket Pool. So this is related to the Ethereum futures ETF that is happening, and VanEck have started making a whole lot of noise about their ETF getting approved. So with the futures ETFs, it's not a matter of them getting approved, it's a matter of them getting denied. So once applications went in for an ETH futures ETF, the only thing that would stop it from happening would be the SEC coming out and saying, no, you can't do this. It's a 7 or 8 week process, and the clock starts ticking from the moment of application. And because of that, we knew that it was going to be coming in October unless it was denied. And normally those are denied within the first 2 weeks. So the fact that it wasn't denied after the first 2 weeks meant that it was most likely going to be approved. And now with the US government about to shut down on October 1st, VanEck have started talking about how their ETH futures ETF is going to go ahead. So they had this little press release saying VanEck today announced the upcoming launch of a VanEck Ethereum Strategy ETF, an actively managed ETF designed to seek capital appreciation by investing in Ether futures contracts. ETH, that's the name of their ticker, does not invest in ETH or any other digital assets directly. They just deal with futures contracts. So there was a whole song and dance literally that they did about it. Here there was an article from the block talking about what it is and what it's going to do and how it all works. If you're curious about checking that out, you can go do that. The song and dance is literally this ad that VanEck made for it about how there's a person dancing. So how this is coming to to be trading, and how the Ether basically is going to be huge and awesome, and you're going to get rich by investing in this. That is not my advice. That's just what VanEck are insinuating here. So definitely check out what's happening with the future stuff. We had Marceau here who gave a really good update on what this actually means. And Marceau says, Scott Johnson, he says, people focused on the ETF flows when they should have been focusing on how this changes enforcement landscapes. The latter is far more potent, still underappreciated, but it will become more apparent. So what's happening is people are saying, this isn't a big deal for Ethereum. It's not going to be settled with actual ETH. This is going to be contracts and it's not very useful and blah, blah, blah. And, there's not going to be much money coming into this. So it's kind of pointless. It's not really going to do anything for the price. So the fact that this is giving security, the SEC information and kind of making it so Ether is more likely to be a commodity than a security. Here Marceau says this is a key point to make. Inflows will probably be modest for ETH futures, but it implies but more the signals it has, right? So it signals that the SEC doesn't consider ETH a security, which then reduces the risk and it clears regulatory ambiguity, and then it furthers the regulatory moat that will benefit ETH, and then it's a stepping stone for a spot ETF. So Bitcoin got its futures ETF in 2017, and it's taken 5 or 6 years basically for it to get to the point where the spot ETF will be approved, most likely in March of 2024. What's funny is that the ETH spot ETF will likely follow the exact same process as the Bitcoin one. That we've already had applications going for that, and if the Bitcoin spot ETF is approved, then it'll be incredibly it would be incredibly unlikely for the ETH one to be denied. So that's definitely something to keep an eye on. And yeah, that's some big news, I think, coming out of like the general Ethereum ecosystem. But anyway, on that note, I'm going to end today's episode. I hope you all have a lovely rest of your day. Thank you all for watching, listening, and being part of the Rocketville community. And I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.